Welcome to the Pistons Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank all of you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like. It boosts the podcast. Got a lot to talk about today, and I hope that you stay with me today. I hope that most of you can listen to the entire podcast because we got a lot of topics. Really interesting. Bill Simmons every year produces a trade value rankings. So he ranks the players not in order of where you would take them or who's the best, and it's who has the most trade value based on a whole bunch of different categories. But that's a big thing. Stu got suspended. We knew he was going to be suspended after the thing in Indiana, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Sixth man of the year, Stan Van Gundy had something to say about that. Happy birthday to Asar. I did a podcast about him yesterday, and it was his birthday yesterday, him and the men's, obviously. But also, big news for me. I mean, I'm a big follower of men's and women's basketball, and Tom Gores submitted a bid for a WNBA team, and so that's exciting. You know, I've been a big fan of the WNBA, and it was so bummer. I love the Shock, and the Shock team came up to my gym and practiced at Kalkaska where I coached, and left us a ball rack autographed and Bill Lambier came up and was in our gym. And anyway, it was fun watching them. I had season tickets to the first season of the WNBA. Anyway, but it was sad when they left and went to Tulsa. But anyway, we're going to start out with let's start out with the suspension. So Stu, he got suspended without pay, which is a lot of money for one game, plus $50,000 fine. And so the NBA has a point system. So if you get a flagrant foul, it's 4 points automatic. If you get a flagrant 2, which is what he got, I don't know how many points it is for a flagrant 1. It might be 2 or 3. But anyway, if you get 5 points, you're automatically suspended. So he's had other flagrant fouls, and I don't know if technicals are factored in or not. If you get 7 points, you're suspended for 2 games. So that's the problem. You never can see these guys. Obviously Stu needs some self-control. He needs to be able to play with the passion and the energy and the toughness without crossing the line. And so, it was so troublesome when we had Rasheed Wallace, and they had a rule that if you played 16 games or got kicked out of 16 games or got 16 technicals, I think it was, then you were suspended. And so he did it, and we needed him, and he even did it in the playoffs. Draymond Green, cost his team championships because he couldn't a championship one year because he could not control himself. So let's hope Stu can get it under control. We need you, Stu. And anyway, let's get into the Bill Simmons trade value rankings. So there's a lot to it. The salary matters. So if you got an exorbitant salary, even though you're a better player than somebody that's really, if there's 2 players that are comparable and one makes 20 more million a year, then they are way higher on the list or lower on the list, I guess you would say. So your value, your trade value is way higher if you make less and are just as good a player, I guess. And so age matters. So there's a lot of really good players. Kevin Durant is like number 28, because who wants to trade and give up a lot of assets for a guy that's way over 30 and near the end of his career? LeBron's number 43, and he's playing at he's playing great, but because of how much he makes, he's got a max, and he's 40 years old, and so you're not going to give up so much for him. So I'm going to save a little bit where our guy Cade comes in, and anyway, he had some honorable mentions, and Ivy made honorable mention. So he had at 85, and we get mad. I was so mad. Everybody was so mad when ESPN released their top 100 before the season. I think Cade was 67, and so that was ridiculously bad. But it is really hard, It is really hard when you go through this list and you see these 85 players and then the honorable mentions. Bill Simmons said there's more good players than there's ever been. I could have easily done 100 and a list of 100, but Ivy was honorable mention. Jalen Green, who's been unbelievable, and some people thought he could have been considered for the All-Star team. He was not even in the top 85. And I watched him play last night, and he took some bad shots again. And he's been playing really well lately. But anyway, the toughest, he had another category where he had the toughest omissions out of his top 85, the toughest ones that he left out. Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart were in that grouping. So obviously, Stu doesn't play that many minutes a game, and Stu doesn't start, and yet he really valued Stu. You watch where Asar, mark my words, try to remember, write it down, where he's going to rank on this next year. Because when you see where his brother, and we talked about this on a podcast I released yesterday about where he ranked, where his brother ranks, and he's very close to the same player. Obviously, again, they're not exactly the same, but you got guys like Zion that was ranked 42, and he's always injured, and so that was a big part of his. I think, I'm sure it was. And then LaMelo, who everybody thought got snubbed in the All-Star game, but he was number 41 on Simmons' list, and even Garland, who made the All-Star list, was 35. So yeah, it's a really interesting list. You can go online and just type in Google Bill Simmons trade value rankings, and you'll get to see the list. There's a lot of interesting, arguments, and there's always, people value different players more, but it's a complicated thing, but I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, Ja Morant was 25, and he's making a max, so he makes a lot of money, but he's injured or suspended quite a bit. Steph was 18, and that, again, his age and his max contract make him, because everybody still thinks that he's one of the best players. But Amen Thompson, number 17 on this list. And again, if you go through the 85 players, there's a lot of good players in the NBA. And to have Amen rank that high, and I know a lot of it has been, he's got so much hype. He was amazing again last night. And I chronicled his last 4 or 5 games, but he is just exploding. And I really think that Asar can ascend, maybe not as high, maybe as high, but he just needs to play and get better. Again, he missed so much of this season, didn't get training camp, didn't get preseason, didn't get all the games when everybody else is playing, then he's on restricted minutes, and so he's been held back a lot. But again, he was playing way better at their rookie years. He was phenomenal in everything. But anyway, Amen was 17. That just tells you. And then our guy, Deuce, Cade Parker-Cunningham, number 14 on the list. And for a guy that was ranked 67th on the ESPN Top 100, that's pretty impressive. And Simmons and Ryan Russillo loves him. And I really respect Simmons and Russillo. You might not, but I do. They have followed this league for a long time. They follow it closely. They watch game after game after game. Some people follow the NBA and they watch a game here or there, and these guys watch lots of games of every team. And he talked about how Cade has been he's been simply magnificent. He said in the responsibility that he's had, but he said just how special Cade has been this year. And Russillo, even when people were down on Cade and saying he was not a bust, but that he wasn't that great, he wasn't going to be a great player, he was never going to be an all-star, lots of that chatter was going on. And Cade's rookie year, he missed a lot of time and didn't get into it. And then he had an injury, missed almost the whole season. And then he's had a bad team. And Bill Simmons said how LaMelo, LaMelo has put up big numbers, but LaMelo's team, he doesn't have great teammates, but Cade doesn't either. So he's kind of saying Cade has just as bad a team as LaMelo, but Cade's team is winning. And sometimes I do think that now Scotty Barnes was ranked way down. Let's see, I think I wrote it down somewhere, but he was ranked way below where you would have thought he would be ranked. He was like in the 50s, I think. And here he got Rookie of the Year just because he got to be on a good team. Yeah, he was ranked 58th on this list for this year. And Lillard was ranked really low too, like 71, because his contract's high. He's 30 into his mid-30s. Trey was ranked 57th. And people make this big thing for Trey and how he got snubbed. And I talked about it a little bit. But Trey and LaMelo are not winning players. And so the Eastern Conference coaches picked this team So again, LaMelo was first in the fan voting, but here Bill Simmons, if you were to trade for him, so everybody on the list, if you go again, if you watch it, read the whole list, if somebody's he's what he's saying is if you are going to make a trade, if you had Trey Young, you wouldn't trade him for Scotty Barnes because Scotty Barnes is one point down. He's 58 and Trey's 56, 57. So Jamal Murray is 56. Again, he has a max contract, so that's even a big part of it. But yeah, so a man makes nothing, and he just impacts the game just like Asar. Those guys have a way of impacting the game, and he said he's a, I always get a big kick out of draft and stuff where people try to say this guy's a top 5% or top 10%. We heard that about him and Asar all the way through, and we still hear about it. But Simmons said he's a 0%. Nobody else is as athletic as he is, and so if you want to say Asar's behind him, he's right on his heels. So anyway, it was exciting to see Cade and get that respect. Evan Mobley was rated one spot above. That's just Bill Simmons' personal preference. I think that because he said that he just values the big guys that can protect the rim a little bit more, but it's still one spot. I still don't know because Russillo made a good point about how a guy that can get you a bucket and carry your team, and that's Cade. Mobley is not that player. Mobley has really improved his offense this year, but it's something different. So anyway, I want to talk about this real quick. It was hilarious. I hope you stayed with me, and so you might have heard this already, but Russillo says to Simmons, says 5.5 is the over under. How many Piston games do you think that Monty Williams has watched this year? And Simmons says Simmons took the under. He said he's probably on an island somewhere. And then Simmons said that Monty should have to be on an ABC sitcom with Killian Hayes where they're in Aruba at some club and they have to live together in Aruba. And so I just thought that was just so hilarious. Another thing, though, I will say this about the class of Banchero was ranked higher than I would have ranked him, but I will say this: the 2021 draft class, you put that team together and have a tournament against other classes, and that team's going to be really, really good. When you have Cade, Mobley. I'm not a fan of Green, but Green is gifted. He's a very, very talented player. And Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner, you put those guys on a team, that's a team. And they even, I think, could play off each other. And they even, I think, that would be a tremendous team. It would be fun to see them play against some other draft classes. So, yeah, we had Dallas is a 1.5 point favorite tonight. I just wanted to throw that in there too. They're favored to beat the Pistons, even though they've had a big rash of injuries. They still have Kyrie. They have my boy Quentin Grimes that's playing for them. And so we'll see how the game tonight turns out. But I really hope that you took the time to listen to this episode. Oh, last thing. This is important to me. I should have maybe mentioned it earlier. Stan Van Gundy was on TNT, and they're talking about the race for the Sixth Man of the Year award. And he said it's between DeAndre Hunter and Peyton Pritchard. It's a two-man race. And it ticked me off because Beasley's right there. So DeAndre Hunter probably will win it. And again, I was hoping the Pistons could have traded for him for nothing. They could have almost been given assets to take him off their team like 2 or 3 years ago when I wanted them to do it. And he's averaging over 19 points a game, shooting 46%. 3.7 rebounds, 1.5 assists. So he's just phenomenal. He's a average or slightly better defender. Peyton Pritchard is phenomenal. He's shot the lights out. He shot the lights out against the Pistons, but he's averaging 14 points a game, shooting 47%, and he's getting like 3 rebounds a game. So, but Beasley, our guy, is averaging 16.4 points a game, 3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, shooting 43% and 41% on threes. So, his percentage his overall percentage is low because obviously 90-some% of his shots are threes. So that, and his 3% is 41, and that is for that volume that he shoots and the tough shots that he shoots, and when everybody's really trying to stop him, that is amazing. And how many games has he? They always try to talk about how you impact winning. I don't know. I don't watch Peyton Pritchard play that much or DeAndre Hunter play that much, and um, they can't impact more than what Beasley's meant to the Pistons. But interesting thing, final thought is, the basketball, NBA basketball is a roller coaster ride. I talked about last episode about how the Celtics have been on a losing streak or won like 50% of their games over the last 16 games or something. And the Cavs, who are the best record in the NBA, they had three wins and 5 losses in an 8-game stretch. But you see, this can happen, and it can happen to us. All these teams are bunched with around 23, 21, 20 wins or whatever, and all it takes is, so the Hawks were flying high, pun intended, and they just lost 5 in a row. And the Raptors were doing bad, and they just won 5 in a row. And then all of a sudden, teams are going to just be able to move, and that is going to happen. We still have a lot of games left, and so we're going to see that happen with our Pistons and with a lot of teams. So just hang on hang on to your seatbelts and enjoy the ride. And hopefully we play really well tonight against the Mavs and be the reason that somebody feels cared for. Go Pistons.